The morning sun cast long shadows across New Haven Colony as Captain Jake Morrison watched the cargo ship land on the dusty ground. The ship was bigger than most that came to their small mining world. Its metal sides were scratched and dented from many trips across space. Jake pulled his hat down to block the bright sun and walked toward the landing pad. New Haven was not a fancy place. It was a working colony where humans and aliens dug deep into the planet to find rare crystals. The buildings were simple and strong, built to last in the harsh desert wind. Most days were quiet except for the sound of mining machines and workers calling to each other. Jake had been the colony captain for 5 years. He was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes. The people trusted him to keep them safe. Today felt different, though. Something about this cargo ship made him worried, but he could not say what. The ship's door opened with a loud hiss. Steam poured out as the air inside mixed with the planet's dry atmosphere. A nervous man in a dirty uniform walked down the ramp. He carried a datapad and kept looking back at his ship. "Captain Morrison?" the man called out. His voice shook a little. "I am Cargo Officer Ben Taylor from the transport ship Golden Star. I have a delivery for your research station." Jake walked over and shook Ben's hand. The man's palm was sweaty despite the cool morning air. "What kind of delivery?" Jake asked. Ben looked at his datapad. "The manifest says exotic fauna for research purposes, some kind of specimen from the old Kethvar Empire ruins. Dr. Richard Hayes at your research lab ordered it." Jake frowned. Dr. Hayes had not mentioned anything about getting a new specimen. The colony's research station was small and mainly studied the local plants and animals. They had never dealt with anything from the old Kethvar Empire before. "Where is this specimen?" Jake asked. Ben pointed to a large metal container still inside the ship. It was the size of a small room and had thick walls with warning signs all over it. Strange scratches covered one side like something inside had been trying to get out. "We need to move it quickly," Ben said. "The power cells for the containment field are running low. We have maybe 2 hours before—" A loud bang came from inside the container, then another. The whole ship shook. Jake stepped back. "What exactly is in there?" Ben wiped sweat from his face. "The papers just say it is some kind of animal specimen. Big one, though. We picked it up from a research station near the outer rim. They were real eager to get rid of it." More banging sounds came from the container. This time they could hear something else too. A low, growling sound that made the hair on Jake's arm stand up. "Get Dr. Hayes down here now," Jake told his assistant Mary Phillips over his radio. "And tell Lisa Parker to bring some security guards." Dr. Hayes arrived 15 minutes later in his old hover car. He was a thin man with messy hair who always looked like he had just woken up. Behind him came Lisa Parker, the colony's security. "Chief." She was tough and smart with short black hair and sharp green eyes. 3 security guards followed her. "What is all this about?" Dr. Hayes asked as he got out of his car. Then he heard the sounds coming from the container and his face went pale. "Oh no, they actually sent it." "Sent what?" Jake demanded. Dr. Hayes walked closer to the container, but not too close. 6 months ago, I put in a request to study any Kethvar biological specimens that turned up. It was just academic interest. I never thought anyone would actually find one, let alone send it here. "What kind of specimen are we talking about?" Lisa asked. Her hand moved closer to her weapon. "If the old records are right," Dr. Hayes said slowly, "it is probably a warbeast." Everyone got very quiet. Even people who had never fought in the old wars knew about warbeasts. They were the reason the Galactic Council's war against the Kethvar Empire had lasted 300 years. "Those things are all dead," one of the security guards said. "The war ended 50 years ago. Most of them are dead," Dr. Hayes corrected. "But some were found in stasis chambers on abandoned worlds. Usually they died soon after being awakened, but a few survived." The banging from the container got louder. Cracks appeared in the warning signs on the side. "We need to get this thing to a proper containment facility," Jake said. "Our research station is not equipped for anything dangerous." "The containment field is failing," Ben said, staring at his datapad. Power levels are at 15%. How long do we have? Lisa asked. Maybe 30 minutes. Jake grabbed his radio. All colony personnel, this is Captain Morrison. We have a code yellow situation at the landing pad. Stay away from the area until further notice. But it was too late. The container suddenly went quiet. No more banging. No more growling. Just complete silence. Maybe it died, one guard whispered. Then the side of the container exploded outward. What came out was like nothing any of them had ever seen in person. The Warbeast stood 12 feet tall on 6 powerful legs. Its body was covered in black scales that looked like polished metal. Each of its limbs ended in claws longer than a man's hand. But the worst part was its eyes. They glowed like molten gold and held an intelligence that was cold and calculating. The creature looked around at all the humans staring at it. For a moment, nobody moved. Then it opened its mouth and roared. The sound was so loud that windows broke in buildings 3 blocks away. The security guards covered their ears and fell to their knees. Even Jake, who had served in the military, had never heard anything so terrifying. The Warbeast stepped out of the broken container. Its claws clicked on the metal landing pad. It moved like a hunting cat, smooth and deadly. When it saw the humans, it lowered its head and made a sound like laughter. "Shoot it," Lisa yelled, but her voice was barely heard over the ringing in everyone's ears. The security guards raised their weapons and fired. The energy bolts hit the creature's scales and bounced off like raindrops. The Warbeast looked annoyed more than hurt. "Run," Jake shouted. The creature moved faster than anything that size should be able to move. It leaped over their heads and landed near the colony's main street. People screamed and ran in all directions. The Warbeast seemed to enjoy their fear. It, too, walked to the nearest building and casually pushed it over. The structure crashed down in a cloud of dust and debris. Then it moved to the next building and did the same thing. "Get everyone to the emergency shelters," Jake ordered Lisa. "Send out a distress call to the nearest military base." "That will take weeks for them to get here," Lisa replied as she helped Dr. Hayes to his feet. "Then we better figure out how to survive that long." The Warbeast continued its rampage through the colony. It seemed to understand that breaking their machines and buildings would make the humans helpless. It destroyed the power station, the water treatment plant, and the communication tower. Each act of destruction was calculated and cruel. By evening, the creature had claimed the entire eastern section of the colony as its territory. Anyone who tried to enter that area was met with a roar that could be heard for miles. The Warbeast patrolled its new domain like a king surveying his kingdom. Jake stood on the roof of the colony headquarters, looking out at the destruction. Smoke rose from several buildings. The sound of crying children came from the emergency shelters below. "How long can we hold out?" he asked Lisa. "Food and water for maybe 2 weeks if we are careful," she replied. "But that thing shows no signs of leaving. If anything, it seems to be getting more aggressive." Dr. Hayes joined them, on the roof. He had been reading old military reports all day. The records say Warbeasts never retreat and never surrender. They were bred to fight until they die of old age or are overwhelmed by superior numbers. "How many soldiers did it usually take to kill one?" Jake asked. The average was about 200 trained soldiers with heavy weapons. "We have 12 security, guards with light arms." Jake closed his eyes. In all his years as colony captain, he had never faced anything like this. The creature below was not just an animal. It was a living weapon designed by a civilization that had nearly conquered the galaxy. As night fell over New Haven, the Warbeast's golden eyes glowed in the darkness. It sat in the ruins of what had been the colony's school, watching the humans huddle in their shelters, waiting, planning, hunting. Tomorrow would bring new terrors. But tonight, the people of New Haven could only wait and pray that help would come before the monster decided to finish what it had started. 8-year-old Danny Cooper pressed his face against the small window of his family's home and watched the grown-ups run around outside. They all looked scared and angry. His father Pete had left early that morning to work in the deep mines before the monster came. Now Pete was trapped down there with 6 other miners because the creature's rampage had caused a cave-in. Danny was supposed to be in the emergency shelter with the other children, but he had snuck back home when nobody was looking. He was not going to leave without his dad. The other kids were crying and asking for their parents, but Danny felt different. He was worried about his father, but he was not scared of the monster everyone was talking about. All citizens must report to designated safe zones immediately, came the announcement over the colony's speakers. Captain Morrison's voice sounded tired and stressed. Stay away from the eastern sector. The creature is extremely dangerous. Danny ignored the announcement. He had always been good at staying hidden when adults were looking for him. Back on Earth, he used to disappear into the woods for hours, watching animals and learning their habits. His father used to joke that Danny could make friends with a wild bear if he wanted to. The boy gathered some food and water from the kitchen and stuffed them into his backpack. He also took his father's small flashlight and the pocket knife Pete had given him for his last birthday. Then he headed toward the mining tunnels. The colony's emergency sirens were still blaring as Danny made his way through the empty streets. Most buildings had their windows boarded up or covered with metal sheets. Broken glass crunched under his feet from where the monster's roar had shattered windows. He could hear the creature moving around in the eastern sector. Sometimes it would roar, and the sound would echo off the canyon walls that surrounded the colony. Other times there would be a loud crash as it knocked down another building. Danny listened carefully to these sounds. They told him where the monster was and what it was doing. The entrance to the mining tunnels was on the edge of town, away from where the creature had made its territory. Danny slipped past the emergency barriers and went underground. The tunnels were dark and cool, lit only by emergency lights that cast strange shadows on the walls. He had been down here many times with his father. Pete Cooper was one of the best mining engineers in the colony, and he often brought Danny along to show him how the crystal extraction worked. Danny knew these tunnels better than most adults. The cave-in had happened near Tunnel 7, about half a mile underground. Danny could hear the rescue teams working with their machines, trying to clear the rocks and debris. But it was slow work, and they had to be careful not to cause another collapse. "Dad," Danny called out when he reached the blocked tunnel. "Dad, can you hear me?" A faint voice came from the other side of the rocks. "Danny, is that you, son? What are you doing down here? I came to wait for you. Are you okay?" "We're all fine, but the tunnel is completely blocked. The rescue teams say it might take 2 days to dig us out safely." Danny sat down next to the pile of rocks and talked to his father through the small gaps. Pete told him about the other miners who were trapped with him and how they were staying calm and conserving their air. Danny told his father about the monster and how everyone was scared. "The grown-ups say it's a warbeast from the old wars," Danny said. "Dr. Hayes says they're really dangerous and don't listen to anyone." "You stay away from that thing," Pete said firmly. "Promise me you'll go to the emergency shelter." "I promise, Dad." But Danny did not mean it. He had no intention of leaving the colony without his father. For the next several hours, Danny explored the parts of the colony that everyone else had abandoned. He was careful to stay hidden and quiet. He watched the security guards trying to figure out how to deal with the monster. He listened to Captain Morrison and Dr. Hayes arguing about what to do next. The monster had settled into the ruins of the colony school. It seemed to like high places where it could see everything around it. Sometimes it would walk around its territory, marking trees and buildings with its claws. Other times it would just sit and watch the parts of the colony where people were still hiding. Danny studied the creature from his hiding spots. Unlike the adults, he was not too scared to really look at it. The monster was huge and had scary claws and teeth, but there was something about the way it moved that reminded Danny of other animals he had known. It looked lonely. Back on Earth, Danny had found a wild dog that had been lost in the forest for weeks. The dog had been scared and aggressive at first, snapping at anyone who came near, but Danny had seen past the fear and anger. He had seen a lost animal that just wanted to find its pack. The Warbeast moved the same way that dog had moved. It was not just destroying things for fun. It was confused and trying to make sense of a world that did not make sense to it. Late in the afternoon, Danny heard shouting from the mining area. A group of workers was trying to reach the trapped miners through a different tunnel, but their path took them close to the eastern sector. The Warbeast had noticed them. Danny ran toward the sound of trouble. He reached the area just as the creature cornered 5 miners against a broken wall. The men were holding mining tools like weapons, but they looked terrified. The Warbeast was much bigger up close than it had seemed from a distance. The monster reared up on its back legs, making itself even taller. Its golden eyes blazed with anger and its claws gleamed in the afternoon sun. It opened its mouth and prepared to attack the helpless miners. But something made it pause. Maybe it was a sound or a movement. The creature turned its massive head and looked directly at Danny. The boy stepped out from behind the pile of metal where he had been hiding. He was not running or screaming like everyone else had done. He just stood there, small and calm, looking back at the giant monster. The Warbeast lowered itself back down to all 6 legs, its head tilted to one side like a dog trying to understand a new sound. For a long moment, the creature and the child stared at each other. Danny remembered his father's dog Rex, who had gotten lost in the woods when Danny was 6. When they finally found Rex, the dog had been scared and wild-acting, but Danny had been able to calm him down by being patient and speaking in a quiet voice. The monster in front of him looked just as lost and confused as Rex had been. The miners behind, the creature, were holding their breath. Captain Morrison and some security guards were running toward them, but they were still too far away to help. Everything depended on what happened in the next few seconds. Danny took a step forward. The Warbeast's muscles tensed, but it did not attack. Instead, it seemed curious about this small human who was not afraid. "Hey there, big guy," Danny said softly. "You're scared, aren't you? This isn't your home and you don't know where you are." The creature's golden eyes blinked slowly. Its breathing was deep and fast, like an animal that had been running for a long time. Danny took another step. He was close enough now that the monster could have killed him with one swipe of its claws. But something told him that was not going to happen. "Everyone here is scared of you," Danny continued in the same gentle voice he had used with frightened animals. "But I think you're just lost. You don't want to hurt people. You just don't know what else to do." The Warbeast lowered its head until it was closer to Danny's level. The boy could see his reflection in the creature's golden eyes. Up close, the monster did not look quite so terrifying. It looked tired and confused. Behind the creature, the 5 miners were slowly backing away. Captain Morrison and his men had arrived, but they stayed back when they saw what was happening. Nobody wanted to do anything that might break whatever spell the child had cast. Danny remembered how his father had taught him to approach scared animals. Never make sudden movements. Never show fear. Always speak in a calm, confident voice. And sometimes, when the moment was right, give a simple command to show that you were in charge. The moment felt right. Danny looked directly into the Warbeast's glowing eyes. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but firm. It was the voice of someone who expected to be obeyed. "Sit." The word hung in the air between them. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then slowly, the massive creature lowered its body to the ground. Its 6 legs folded under it and its tail curled around its side. The Warbeast was sitting, just like a dog following its master's command. The watching miners could not believe what they were seeing. Captain Morrison's mouth fell open. Even Dr. Hayes, who thought he knew everything about alien creatures, stared in amazement. For the first time in its existence, the unstoppable Warbeast had obeyed a command from another living being. And that being was an 8-year-old human child who was not afraid to see past the monster to the lonely, confused creature underneath. Danny smiled and sat down on the ground a few feet away from the creature. "Good boy," he said softly. "That's much better, isn't it?" The Warbeast's golden eyes seemed to soften slightly. Deep in its engineered mind, something ancient and buried was stirring to life. Something that remembered what it was like to be part of a pack, to have a leader, to belong somewhere. The next morning, Danny woke up in the Colony Medical Center. Dr. Susan Mills had insisted he spend the night there after what everyone was calling the incident. The boy had slept better than he had in days, even though he could hear adults whispering outside his door all night long. "How are you feeling, young man?" Dr. Mills asked as she checked his temperature. She was a kind woman with gray hair who had taken care of Danny since he was little. "I'm fine," Danny said, sitting up, in bed. "Where is he?" "Where is who?" "The Warbeast. I named him Titan." "Where is Titan?" Dr. Mills looked uncomfortable. "The creature is being kept in a secure area while the adults figure out what to do. You should not worry about it anymore." But Danny was worried. After he had told Titan to sit yesterday, the creature had stayed calm while Captain Morrison and his team carefully moved the trapped miners to safety. Then Danny had walked with Titan to an empty warehouse on the edge of town. The creature had followed him like a giant dog, ignoring everyone else. Danny got dressed and snuck out of the medical center. It was not hard to find where they were, keeping Titan. He just followed the crowd of people standing around outside the warehouse, all talking in excited voices. "It has not moved since last night," one person was saying. "Just sitting there like a statue." "My cousin says the boy can control its mind," another person whispered. "Maybe it is some kind of human magic." Danny pushed through the crowd until he reached the warehouse door. 2 security guards were standing there, but they were so busy talking to each other that they did not notice a small boy slip past them. Inside the warehouse, Titan was exactly where Danny had left him. The creature was sitting in the middle of the large empty space, his golden eyes focused on the door. When he saw Danny, his whole body seemed to relax. "Hey there, big guy," Danny said softly. "Did you sleep okay?" Titan made a low rumbling sound that was almost like a cat purring. Danny walked over and sat down next to the creature. Up close, Titan's scales were not completely black. They had tiny flecks of dark blue and green that sparkled in the light. "You missed me, didn't you?" Danny said. "I missed you too." The boy had always been able to understand animals better than most people could understand him. His father said it was a gift. His teachers back on Earth had said it was just an overactive imagination, but Danny knew it was real. Animals talked to him, just not with words. Titan was talking to him now. The creature's body language said he was happy, but also confused. He did not understand what was happening to him or why he felt different when the small human was around. "Danny." "Cooper," a stern voice called from the warehouse door. "Get away from that thing right now." Captain Morrison walked into the warehouse with Dr. Hayes and several security guards. They all looked nervous, except for Dr. Hayes, who looked excited. "It's okay," Danny said, not moving from beside Titan. "He won't hurt anyone as long as I'm here." "You don't understand how dangerous this creature is," Captain Morrison said. "We need to get you to safety." "He's not dangerous," Danny replied. "He's just scared and lonely. Watch this." Danny stood up and looked at Titan. "Stand up, boy." The massive creature rose to his feet, moving slowly and carefully. His golden eyes never left Danny's face. "Now lie down." Titan lowered himself to the warehouse floor, resting his huge head on his front legs. Dr. Hayes pulled out a small recording device. "Remarkable," he whispered. "Absolutely remarkable." "How are you doing this?" Captain Morrison asked Danny. "Through." Boy shrugged. "Same way I talk to any animal. You just have to listen to what they're really saying and treat them with respect." Over the next few hours, more people came to watch Danny work with Titan. The boy taught the creature simple commands, like stay and come here. He showed how Titan would only obey him and would become agitated if other people tried to give orders. Dr. Hayes took lots of notes and asked Danny many questions. "Have you ever worked with dangerous animals before?" "Not dangerous ones," Danny said. "But I don't think Titan is really dangerous. I think he was just confused and scared when he got here. Nobody tried to help him understand what was happening. The records say warbeasts are incapable of forming bonds with other species," Dr. Hayes said. "They were bred to be perfect soldiers. No emotions except aggression." "Then the records are wrong," Danny said simply. "Titan has lots of emotions. He just doesn't know how to show them properly." To prove his point, Danny sat down and started talking to Titan about his father and the other miners who were still trapped underground. He told the creature about the colony and how everyone lived and worked together. Titan listened to every word. Sometimes his head would tilt to one side when Danny mentioned something particularly interesting. When Danny talked about his father being trapped, the creature made soft whimpering sounds. "See?" Danny said to the watching adults. "He understands. He cares." Captain Morrison was still not convinced that keeping the Warbeast was safe, but he agreed to let Danny continue working with the creature for a few more days. "If that thing shows any sign of aggression, we're ending this experiment," he warned. "He won't hurt anyone," Danny promised. "Will you, Titan?" The creature made his purring sound and gently touched Danny's shoulder with one massive claw. The boy was not afraid, even though that claw could have torn him in half. News of Danny's success with Titan spread quickly through the colony. Some people thought the boy was a hero. Others thought he was taking a terrible risk that would get everyone killed. But most people were just amazed that such a thing was possible. Danny's father, Pete, was finally rescued from the collapsed mine on the third day. When he saw his son sitting next to a 12-foot-tall monster, Pete nearly fainted. "Danny, what in the world are you doing?" Pete asked, his voice shaky. "This is Titan, Dad. He's my friend." "Titan, this is my father." Titan looked at Pete Cooper with curious golden eyes. The creature could sense that this human was important to Danny, so he made an effort to appear non-threatening. He lowered his head and made a soft greeting sound. Pete stared at the scene in front of him. His 8-year-old son was introducing him to a creature that had terrorized an entire colony just a few days ago, and somehow it all seemed perfectly normal. "He's really gentle once you get to know him," Danny explained. "He was just scared before. Nobody had ever been nice to him." Over the following days, Danny spent most of his time with Titan. He taught the creature about the colony and its people. He showed Titan the mining equipment and explained how they dug crystals from deep underground. The creature seemed fascinated by everything and learned quickly. More importantly, Titan began to show protective instincts toward Danny. When other people came too close too quickly, the creature would position himself between them and the boy. He was not aggressive about it, just careful. "He thinks you're part of his pack now," Dr. Hayes explained to Danny. "In the wild, pack animals protect their young and their leaders. You've somehow become both to him." Danny liked that idea. He had always wanted a pet, but his father had said their small apartment on the mining colony was not big enough for a dog or cat. Now, he had the biggest pet in the galaxy. Not everyone in the colony was happy about the arrangement. Some people demanded that Titan be sent away or destroyed. They could not forget the terror they had felt when the creature first escaped. "That thing is a weapon," complained Mrs. Martha Davis, who ran the colony's general store. "It doesn't belong here, with families and children." "Titan isn't a weapon anymore," Danny argued during a colony meeting. "He's just a big animal who needed someone to understand him." But even Danny's father had concerns. "Son, I'm proud of what you've accomplished, but what happens when you grow up and leave the colony? What happens to Titan then?" Danny had not thought about that. He was only 8 years old, and growing up seemed like something that would happen far in the future, but he could see the worry in his father's eyes. That night, Danny sat with Titan under the colony's artificial lights and talked about the future. He told the creature about his dreams of exploring other worlds and maybe becoming a scientist, like Dr. Hayes. "Would you want to come with me?" Danny asked. "We could travel together and help other people understand creatures like you." Titan's golden eyes seemed to brighten at the idea. The creature had spent his whole life as a weapon of war. The thought of being something else, something better, appealed to the intelligence that lurked behind his fearsome appearance. As the weeks passed, Danny and Titan became an inseparable team. The boy learned to read the creature's moods and body language. Titan learned to be gentle around the smaller, more fragile humans who shared his new home. But their bond was about to face its greatest test. Word of the tamed Warbeast had reached the Galactic Council, and they were sending a team to investigate. Some of those people had fought against creatures like Titan in the old wars, and they had very different ideas about what should be done with him. Danny sensed that changes were coming. Titan sensed it too. The creature became more alert and protective, as if he knew that soon he would have to prove that his transformation was real and permanent. The boy and his impossible friend sat together in the evening light, watching the stars appear in the alien sky. 3 weeks after Titan first sat down at Danny's command, a military ship arrived at New Haven Colony. The ship was sleek and gray, much newer than the cargo vessel that had brought the Warbeast. When it landed, 20 soldiers in full combat gear marched out, followed by a stern woman in a commander's uniform. Commander Susan White was tall and serious, with short blonde hair and cold blue eyes. She walked like someone who was used to being in charge and having people obey her orders immediately. Behind her came a man with scars on his face and anger in his eyes. "I am Commander White from Galactic Council Military Command," she announced to Captain Morrison. "This is Battle Captain Roy Banks. We are here to investigate reports of a controlled warbeast." Danny watched from the warehouse window as the military people set up their equipment. Titan stood beside him, sensing the boy's worry. The creature had been calm and happy for weeks, but now his golden eyes were alert and wary. "They don't look friendly," Danny said quietly. Titan made a low rumbling sound that meant he agreed. The creature could smell the weapons and fear that the soldiers carried with them. It reminded him of bad memories from his past. Battle Captain Banks had fought against warbeasts during the old wars. His entire unit had been killed by a pack of the creatures on a planet called Corvus Prime. He had barely escaped alive, and the scars on his face and arms were reminders of that terrible day. "Where is the beast?" Banks demanded when he met with Captain Morrison and Dr. Hayes. "The creature is contained in Warehouse 7, Dr. Hayes replied. "But I should warn you that it becomes agitated when separated from the boy." "What boy?" Commander White asked. "Danny Cooper. He's the one who established the bond with the creature. Without him, I'm afraid the warbeast might revert to its original programming." Banks laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "There is no bond. These things are killing machines, nothing more. The boy is either lying or deluding himself." Dr. Hayes showed them his research notes and video recordings of Danny working with Titan. Commander White watched everything carefully, asking detailed questions about how the relationship had developed. "Impressive," she said finally. "But we need to run our own test to determine if this represents genuine behavioral modification or simply a temporary anomaly." The test began the next day. Commander White's team separated Danny from Titan for several hours to see how the creature would react. They put Titan in a smaller containment area and watched through cameras as he became increasingly distressed. The creature paced back and forth, making worried sounds. He kept looking toward the door, clearly searching for Danny. After 2 hours, he began clawing at the walls, leaving deep scratches in the metal. "He's looking for me," Danny said as he watched the monitors. "He doesn't understand why I left him." "The subject shows signs of separation anxiety," one of the military scientists noted. "This could indicate genuine attachment rather than simple conditioning." But Battle Captain Banks was not convinced. "All pack animals show distress when separated from their group. This proves nothing." The next test was more aggressive. The soldiers introduced loud noises and flashing lights into Titan's containment area while Danny was forced to watch from another room. The creature became more and more agitated as the stress increased. "Stop it," Danny cried. "You're scaring him." "If the bond is real, he should trust that you're safe," Commander White said. "This test will prove whether his loyalty is to you, personally, or just to his own survival." But Titan was not just scared. He was getting angry. The loud noises and bright lights reminded him of battle, and his old programming was starting to surface. His roars shook the entire building, and his claws left deeper and deeper marks on the walls. "Stress levels are approaching dangerous limits," Dr. Hayes warned. "If he reverts to combat mode, this facility won't hold him." Still, Commander White continued the test. She wanted to see exactly how far she could push the creature before it broke. The breaking point came when Battle Captain Banks decided to take the test one step further. Without telling anyone else, he grabbed Danny's arm and dragged the boy into Titan's line of sight. "Let's see how your pet monster reacts to real danger," Banks said, pulling out his weapon and pointing it at Danny. He did not really plan to hurt the child. He just wanted to provoke a reaction from Titan that would prove the creature was still dangerous. But Titan did not know that Banks was bluffing. The warbeast went completely wild. His roar was so loud that it cracked the reinforced windows of the containment area. He threw himself against the walls with such force that the entire building shook. His golden eyes blazed with a fury that made everyone remember why these creatures had been so feared during the wars. "Let me go!" Danny shouted, struggling against Banks's grip. "You're making him crazy!" Titan's claws tore through the metal walls like they were made of paper. Sparks flew as he damaged the electrical systems. The lights flickered and alarms began, blaring throughout the facility. "The containment field is failing," one of the technicians yelled. "He's going to break out." For a moment it looked like the old Warbeast had returned. The killing machine that had terrorized the colony on that first day was back. And this time, he was even more dangerous, because now he had something specific to protect. But then Danny's voice cut through all the noise and chaos. "Easy, Titan, I'm okay, easy, boy." The creature stopped his attack immediately. He was still breathing hard and his eyes were still blazing, but he was listening to Danny's voice. "I'm not hurt," Danny continued in his calm, gentle tone. "The man was just being stupid. I'm safe. You can calm down now." Slowly, Titan's rage faded. His breathing returned to normal and his eyes stopped glowing so brightly. But he kept watching Battle Captain Banks with clear suspicion and dislike. "Remarkable," Commander White whispered. Even in full combat rage, it responded to the boy's voice. Banks released Danny's arm, his face pale. He had not expected the creature to react so violently, and he certainly had not expected a child's voice to stop such fury so quickly. "The bond appears to be genuine," Dr. Hayes said, checking his instruments. The creature's stress levels dropped to normal within seconds of hearing Danny speak. But the real test was still to come. That night, while everyone was sleeping, the colony's alarm systems detected incoming ships. 3 vessels were approaching fast and they were not broadcasting friendly identification codes. "Pirates," Captain Morrison announced over the emergency speakers. "All citizens to emergency shelters immediately." The pirate ships landed on the outskirts of the colony, and armed raiders began pouring out. They were led by a man called Marcus Kane, a former military officer who had turned to crime after the wars ended. Kane had heard about the tamed Warbeast and wanted to capture it for himself. "A trained monster like that is worth a fortune to the right buyer," Kane told his men as they advanced on the colony. "Take the beast alive and kill anyone who gets in the way." The colony's security forces were quickly overwhelmed. The pirates had better weapons and more experience fighting. Within an hour they had captured most of the main buildings and were searching for the warehouse where Titan was kept. Danny woke, up to the sound of gunfire and shouting. Through his window he could see fires burning in several parts of the colony. People were running and screaming as the pirates chased them. "Dad!" Danny called. But Pete was not in their small apartment. He had gone to help with the colony's defenses. Danny knew what he had to do. The grown-ups were losing the fight and soon the bad men would find Titan. His friend needed him, and the colony needed both of them. The boy snuck out of the apartment building and made his way through the dark streets toward the warehouse. He could hear the pirates getting closer, following the reports of where the monster was being kept. When Danny reached the warehouse, he found Titan pacing nervously in his containment area. The creature could smell the smoke and hear the sounds of battle. His instincts told him that his pack was in danger. "Hey, boy," Danny said softly as he opened the containment door. "Ready to help some people?" Titan's golden eyes met Danny's brown ones. In that moment, both the boy and the creature understood that this was not a test or an experiment. This was real danger, and real people needed their help. For the first time since their friendship began, Danny and Titan were going to fight together. Not for science or to prove a point, but to protect their home and the people they cared about. Danny climbed onto Titan's back, something he had never done before. The creature's scales were warm and smooth, and Danny could feel the powerful muscles moving underneath. "Let's go show these pirates what happens when they mess with our family," Danny said. Titan roared, but this time it was not a sound of rage or fear. It was a battle cry, a declaration that the protectors of New Haven Colony were coming and they would not be stopped. As they headed into the night toward the sounds of battle, Danny felt a mixture of fear and excitement. This was the moment when he and Titan would prove that their bond was stronger than any weapon, and that sometimes the most unlikely friendship could save the day. Danny and Titan moved through the dark streets of New Haven like shadows. The boy guided his friend using hand signals and whispered directions, steering them away from the main fighting and toward where the pirates were causing the most trouble. The first group they found was trying to break into the emergency shelter, where most of the colony's children were hiding. 5 armed pirates were using explosives to blast through the reinforced door while terrified families huddled inside. "See those bad men, Titan?" Danny whispered. "They're trying to hurt kids." Titan's golden eyes focused on the pirates, his lips pulled back to show his sharp teeth. The creature understood that these men were enemies. "Remember, we want to stop them, not kill them," Danny said softly. "Can you do that for me?" Titan made a low rumbling sound that meant he would try. But it would not be easy. Everything in his nature told him to destroy threats completely. Danny slid down from Titan's back and positioned himself where the pirates could see him, but could not reach him quickly. Then he called out, "Hey, leave those people alone." The pirates turned around, surprised to see a small boy in the middle of a battle zone. Their leader, a scarred man with a metal arm, laughed. "Look what we have here. A lost little lamb. Where are your parents, kid?" "Right behind you," Danny said calmly. Titan stepped out of the shadows. The pirates' laughter died immediately. Even men who had fought in wars across the galaxy had never seen anything quite like a warbeast up close. The creature stood 12 feet tall, his black scales gleaming in the firelight, his golden eyes fixed on the armed men. "Nobody move," the pirate leader whispered to his men. But one of them panicked and raised his weapon. "Down, Titan," Danny said quickly. The warbeast dropped to the ground just as the pirate fired. The energy bolt passed harmlessly over Titan's head. Before the pirate could fire again, Titan leaped forward and knocked the weapon from his hands. With one careful swipe of his claws, the other pirates tried to run, but Titan was much faster. Moving with incredible precision, the creature knocked them down one by one without seriously hurting any of them. Within minutes, all 5 pirates were lying on the ground, groaning but alive. "Good boy," Danny said, patting Titan's side. "You were perfect." From inside the shelter, the families cheered. They had watched through the reinforced windows as an 8-year-old boy and his monster friend saved them from the pirates. Danny and Titan continued through the colony, helping wherever they were needed. When pirates tried to steal the medical supplies, Titan appeared like a nightmare and sent them running. When raiders attempted to destroy the water treatment plant, the warbeast's roar alone was enough to make them think twice. But the real challenge came when they reached the colony's central plaza. Marcus Kane, the pirate leader, had taken Captain Morrison and Commander White prisoner. He was holding them at gunpoint while his remaining men tried to figure out where the famous tamed warbeast was being kept. "I know you're out there, monster," Kane shouted into the night. "Show yourself, or these people die." Danny and Titan watched from behind a damaged building. The boy counted 12 armed pirates in the plaza, all positioned where Titan could not reach them without putting the hostages in danger. "This is tricky," Danny whispered. "If you attack, they might hurt Captain Morrison and Commander White." Titan understood. He had learned to think beyond simple violence during his weeks with Danny. But the situation seemed impossible. How could they save the hostages without risking their lives? The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Hayes appeared at Danny's side, moving quietly through the rubble. "Danny, thank goodness you're safe," the scientist whispered. "I've been looking for you." "Dr. Hayes, we need to help Captain Morrison and the others. I have an idea, but it's very dangerous. Can Titan move without making noise?" Danny looked at his friend. "He can be quiet when he needs to be." "Why?" Dr. Hayes explained his plan. It was risky and required perfect timing, but it might work. Danny would have to trust Titan completely, and Titan would have to trust Danny more than he had ever trusted anyone. "Are you ready, boy?" Danny asked, looking into Titan's golden eyes. The creature nodded slightly. He was ready. Danny took a deep breath and walked out into the plaza. The pirates immediately pointed their weapons at him, but Kane held up his hand. Well, the famous Beastmaster. "Where's your pet, little boy?" "He's around," Danny said, trying to sound braver than he felt. Let Captain Morrison and Commander White go, and maybe I'll tell you. Kane laughed. I don't think you understand the situation. I'm in charge here. You're going to call your monster, and I'm going to take him with me. That creature is worth more money than this entire colony. Titan doesn't belong to anyone, Danny said firmly. He's my friend, not my pet. Friends, enemies, property. It doesn't matter to me. That thing is coming with me whether you like it or not. Kane grabbed Danny's arm and pulled the boy closer. Call it now, or I start shooting hostages. Danny looked around the plaza. He could not see Titan anywhere, but he knew his friend was in position. Dr. Hayes had said the timing had to be perfect. Okay, Danny said, but Titan doesn't like sudden movements or loud noises. If your men stay calm, he'll stay calm. Just call the beast. Danny took another deep breath. Everything depended on what happened next. Titan, he called out. Come here, boy. The Warbeast emerged from the shadows on the far side of the plaza. He moved slowly and carefully, just as Danny had taught him. The pirates all turned to watch the incredible creature approach, but they were watching the wrong direction. While everyone was focused on Titan's dramatic entrance, they did not notice the second shape moving through the darkness behind them. Dr. Hayes had created a diversion using one of the colony's maintenance robots, dressed with pieces of Titan's shed scales to make it look like another Warbeast in the dim light. The real Titan was creeping up behind the pirates, moving silent as a shadow. Danny had taught him this game during their weeks together. How to approach without being seen or heard. That's close enough, Kane shouted when the robot was about 50 feet away. Now call it closer. I can't, Danny said. You're scaring him by pointing guns at me. He won't come closer while he thinks I'm in danger. It was the truth, but not the whole truth. Titan would not come closer because he was already as close as he needed to be. Danny felt Kane's grip tighten on his arm. The pirate leader was getting frustrated and angry. Soon he would start making mistakes. Your monster obeys you, doesn't it? Kane snarled. Make it do what I want. He obeys me because he trusts me, Danny said quietly. Trust can't be forced. It has to be earned. Kane raised his weapon and pointed it directly at Danny's head. Then you better start earning my trust. Kid, call that thing over here right now. Danny looked into Kane's angry eyes. He saw fear there, and desperation. This man was dangerous because he had nothing left to lose. But Danny was not afraid. He had learned something important during his time with Titan. Sometimes the most powerful thing you could do was stay calm when everyone else was panicking. Trust me, Danny said to Kane, his voice steady and sure. For just a moment, the pirate leader was confused by the boy's calmness. In that moment of confusion, Kane's attention wandered from the fake Warbeast to the child in his arms. That was when Danny spoke the word that changed everything. Now. The real Titan, who had been crouched in perfect silence just 10 feet behind. The pirates moved faster than the human eye could follow. He disarmed Kane with one precise swipe of his claws, grabbed the pirate leader with another, and knocked down 3 more raiders before any of them could react. The remaining pirates tried to run, but Commander White and Captain Morrison were already free and ready for them. The colony's security forces, who had been waiting for the signal, emerged from their hiding places and surrounded the plaza. Within minutes, the battle was over. Kane found himself flat on his back with 6 tons of barely controlled Warbeast standing over him. Titan's golden eyes blazed with protective fury, and his claws were just inches from the pirate's throat. Easy, Titan, Danny said, walking over to his friend. We got him. You can let him up now. But Titan did not move. He kept staring down at the man who had threatened Danny. It's okay, boy, Danny said more firmly. He can't hurt anyone now. Let him up. Still, Titan hesitated. Every instinct told him to eliminate the threat permanently. Danny reached up and gently touched the side of Titan's massive head. Trust me, he said softly. Those words, the same words Danny had spoken to, Kane had a completely different meaning when spoken to Titan. They meant safety. They meant partnership. They meant that even when violence seemed like the only answer, there was always another choice. Slowly, Titan stepped back and allowed Kane to get to his feet. The pirate leader was shaking, either from fear or from shock, at being so close to death and then being spared. As the security forces led the captured pirates away, Commander White approached Danny and Titan. The stern military officer looked different now. There was respect in her eyes and something that might have been wonder. "That was the most remarkable display of cooperation I have ever witnessed," she said. "The bond between you two is unlike anything in our records." Battle Captain Banks, who had also watched the entire battle, walked over to Danny